Absolutely. I am encouraged. I'm also encouraged that the stream is now up and we are officially live. I can see you and I on my phone, double checking, that it's working and everything. So let's jump into it. And why don't we play some music? Because you got to play some music, Cody, before things really get kicked off here.
Make you feel alive?
Alive. The game was great. 117 to 107. First half was electric. We're going to get into all of it. We're going to break down the Knicks side of things, the Thunder side of things, everything in between. There's a lot to break down, a lot that just happened.
Subway Sports Talk.
So let's get into it.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
All right, here we go. Subway Sports Talk. My name is Peter Kennedy, and I'm your host. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning into SST on Apple Podcasts app, Spotify, YouTube, and also right now, right here, live on Twitter, on X, whatever you want to call it. Pete Kennedy and Cody O'Connor to react to this Knicks Oklahoma City Thunder game. What a game. It felt like the biggest Knicks game of the year for sure. I don't know if that felt similar for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Obviously, the Thunder have been playing incredible ball. For as good as the Knicks were in December, Thunder were better. Of all the teams that you can actually look to who are playing better than the New York Knicks, you could probably only talk about the Thunder and the Cavs. Like, that's it, right? It's a short list. The Knicks officially have put themselves in the conversation with the Cavs and Celtics, with the Thunder. And if you want to go down the Western Conference, you can go to the Houston Rockets. You can go to the Denver Nuggets. You can go across the best of the best with the New York Knicks. And this was the test that was super important to Knicks fans. So before we get into the breakdown, Cody, as a Thunder fan, to give some perspective here, I'm a Knicks fan. You're a Thunder fan. As a Thunder fan, did this game feel as big to you and the Thunder as it did to us Knicks fans?
It was, one of those slightly elevated, really good matchup, tough team. And again, it's weird to say encouraging after 14 game win streak, you're like, or 13, now 14. Yeah, it's like, hey, eventually you're going to lose one. But this was a good measuring stick game, I think, for both. Got to remember how young Oklahoma City still is. And so, as far as a regular season game in January, yeah, I thought there was a slightly elevated feel to it.
It was elevated and it was important. I'm glad that it felt elevated for y'all as well, because there's a chance that, like, Knicks fans, right, in our own world are saying this is our biggest game so far this year, a real test since we've hit our stride. Like, who cares about that Boston game in game one? We'll see them again. Cleveland, you played so early in the year. It's like, all right, we'll see them again. The Knicks had a relatively easy schedule in December, right? And they took advantage of that. They were just on a 9-game win streak, but this one felt like a true measuring stick with all the conversations going into this about the Knicks reaching that upper echelon. This was one of those real tests. So I'm glad there was at least some raised feeling on the Thunder side, because that would feel kind of pathetic, right? If the Knicks were like, yeah, game of the year for us, this is the biggest one, and Thunder fans like, yeah, it's just a Friday night game, right? But that doesn't seem like it was truly the case. It was at least a little bit more raised. Obviously not like a conference rival or anything like that, but got to feel good as a Thunder fan to put up against a good team and show out when you were down and out in the first half at the end there. And in the third quarter, didn't quite make the comeback. Fourth quarter, just absolutely hit the ground running. A lot to break down on top of it, but let's start with the vibe first, Cody, because I think on Twitter, from what I saw, from our conversations, from other group chats I'm in, it seemed like the vibe was high with this entire game, that the energy was there, the level of play was there. Did you feel like this was an above average played game, like where you can just feel the talent on both sides?
Yeah, I mean, I texted you guys earlier, but I came from watching a couple of high school basketball games today. And so to be able to get this treat into this awesome matchup, and I thought both sides, both teams had played really, at least at different points in the game, like excellent basketball. And I thought OKC started really well, and I thought the Knicks had obviously that unbelievable second quarter. But to see the ball movement from them, to see it pop that way, and this is the first time I've been able to watch them in like over a week now. To see that it's getting even better than what I remember it's again an encouraging sign. And I thought it was two teams playing again, 13 and 9 game win streaks coming in, obviously playing awesome basketball. It felt like that continued. It didn't seem fluky one way or the other. I thought there was obviously some weird officiating going on. I think both sides kind of felt that, or felt like maybe slighted at sometimes, or that was inconsistent. But I thought the outcome made sense. I thought the game was played just really well, tough and physical. And again, get that in January. You can't always see that coming. So nice little treat for us tonight.
The physicality is basically the next thing that needs to be brought up here, because I think Knicks fans have a gripe. Knicks fans are feeling some type of way right now. And I always try to be a little bit hesitant when that is coming up, because, when the Knicks fan or the losing fan is very complainy about the referees, I always have a little bit of a hesitation. And now generally I think Knicks fans are saying, hey, it's not an excuse. Like, we got outplayed in that fourth quarter, but it felt like the physicality only went in one direction in that fourth quarter. Obviously, I don't believe that that's why the Knicks lost. However, I think it's a testament to what the Oklahoma City Thunder are right now. They were that physical all game long. And in the NBA and in the game of basketball, when you see a team physical from the get-go and you kind of sustain that physicality, you are going to see more referees kind of not call ticky-tack stuff, right? They're not going to call the soft fouls, because that's how it goes. That's how it's been moving on the front of the entire game so far. So the physicality side of it, did you feel like that was a mismatch in your favor, or did you feel like the Knicks brought a level of physicality to the table as well?
I thought it was matched, and again, I've talked about Oklahoma City as, at least as a regular season team, as a really tough regular season team to beat. They're what I call a regular season juggernaut. I've said for a while, I don't think the regular season matters quite as much to them anymore, because to me, it's about what they can do in the playoffs. And so I thought the Knicks were able to match a young, hungry Oklahoma City team's energy and physicality all night. And if I'm being honest, I do think that actually the Knicks have slightly a gripe, and I thought they got a tougher whistle than Oklahoma City got. And it's ironic because there's a conversation going on really all year, at least in the Thunder Twitter spaces, of how they've gotten an unfair whistle. They're like drive rate per game and their percentage of drives and against the calls that they've gotten. And all year I felt like they've gotten a tough whistle. And watching this game, I would say if one of the two teams would have a gripe, I would say it would be the Knicks. I agree. I don't think it changed the outcome. But I thought OKC, especially Lou Dort, got away with a little bit more than what the Knicks were able to get away with as far as physicality.
Lou Dort absolutely stands out right there. And Cody, I'm also noticing that I must have not changed some sort of setting.
Does it say Juan Soto is a New York Met?
It says Juan Soto is a New York Met.
It's not. That's not wrong, though.
That is true that Juan Soto is a New York Met. And I'm trying to figure out, like, I changed the text. It says Knicks fall to OKC 117-107. And I think maybe it's because we're live already, and I must have missed my chance, because now Juan Soto is a New York Met. And I don't know if I can change that right now.
Well, he is a New York Met, and when people tune in, they're like, why is that still happening? And then we're just talking about Thunder Knicks the whole time. I mean, it's a good keep you on your toes moment.
Yeah, I guess we just roll with it at this point, right? There's no reason to change.
You know what? This is crazy. Hold on. Yeah, so like I just had us on, which is very weird. But there's nothing to do about it. Just got to roll with it, I suppose.
Yeah, that's what happens when you go live. Very excited after a great game. And yeah, here we are. Juan Soto's a New York Met, but we're talking Knicks and Thunder. So we'll keep that thing rolling on, as I think upwards of 50 people already up inside the live stream thinking we're talking Mets, we're talking Knicks, and Oklahoma City. Hopefully as soon as they click it, they figure out what the hell's going on around here. Anyways, the Lou Dort side of it. This is important because going into this game, Cody, I don't know if you saw like my tweet or my story about some of the keys to this game, which we'll get into that. One thing that I didn't really mention that I wanted to, because I mentioned who was guarding SGA on the Knicks side of things, which I assumed would be mostly McHale and Josh Hart. Occasionally Brunson would just be there, maybe OG occasionally. And all intents and purposes, they did an okay job on SGA, right? He still got his points. Obviously, in the fourth quarter, he closed them out pretty well, but not efficient early in the game. And that was a good job. But the other side is who's guarding Jalen Brunson. And Lou Dort is kind of one of the more perfect prototypes to match up against Jalen Brunson because of that physicality. Brunson's physical. He can handle a beating. He could handle some of the pushing and the shoving and the bouncing off of each other and whatnot. And I'm sure there's some people out there being like, yeah, it's because he flops all the time. I don't necessarily think that's the case on Brunson. Like, he flops, obviously, but it's not egregious and it's not to a detriment to his play style. However, Lou Dort and the physicality that he plays defense with, I find to be a tough matchup for Brunson because he's not going to back off. He's not going to stop being physical. And yeah, he got called here and there for a different foul or two, but that seems like the nightmare matchup for Brunson. I know people think that Dyson Daniels in Atlanta is another tough one. I think that's more because of length. Jalen Suggs, he's had some success with, but he's a tough one. Is Dort that lockdown guy for you for everybody, or is it that matchup dependent? And did you feel confident with him kind of keying up on Brunson?
I think in general, Oklahoma City has guys, and they didn't have Alex Caruso tonight, but they typically have 3, 4 guys that I think a smaller guard has a really tough matchup against. Like, it's not a Brunson specific. It's if your top tier player is a smaller guard, they could get theirs. And I thought Brunson really played a great game tonight too. But it's going to be very difficult because it's not just Lou Dort who does bring all of that. He uses up every foul possible. He makes you feel it, and he definitely gets away with some things because he's built that reputation. Cason Wallace is like that too. He's a little bit not as strong as Lou Dort, but has that footwork, that quick feet. He typically stays down on pump fakes. And Alex Caruso is almost a combination of those two and could potentially be the best defender of the three. So they have just a multitude of options to throw at those smaller guards, which is why I liked a guy like OG tonight. I liked Karl Anthony Towns tonight. He just dominated the glass more than he dominated the scoring sheet. But yeah, typically a Brunson-like player, a Trae Young-like player, Jamal Murray, you can go down the list, Kyrie Irving, those types of players, Oklahoma City has a lot of guys to make it very difficult on them.
Yeah, that's something that I felt, and I think Brunson responded early well by getting other guys involved, right? I think he had 6 assists at halftime, and then in that fourth quarter, it was time for him to kind of get the scoring shoes on, if you will, and like turn up, because I felt like he had to score late in that fourth for them to stay in that game, and he wasn't hitting shots that you normally see him hit, right? They're difficult shots, but they're shots that you see Brunson hit. Part of that was because he never really found a scoring rhythm in the game. That was one. And 2, the defense was strong. The physicality was there. They were keeping him uncomfortable. And even though you see those shots fall sometimes, they were not falling late in the fourth. So let's go into this topic real quick, Cody, because I think it's one that Knicks fans are definitely talking about. One of the key differences that we felt as Knicks fans watching this game was the depth, right? Oklahoma City is a deep team to the point where they have players that could probably play on other teams that don't get burned on your squad. And Chet Holmgren's not even playing, right? So twofold. One of your best minute grabbers on the team is not even in the lineup right now. That's one. And you still have depth. Aaron Wiggins, for example, Kenrich Williams, who's the Mitchell guy that was coming out of the woodworks there early in the game?
AJ Mitchell, second round pick
Mitchell.
this year. That's been really good and like a confident enough to put the ball on the floor guy.
Dude was pissing me off in the first half. I'll tell you that much. AJ Mitchell was doing some things, and Kenrich Williams always does stuff like that. That's normal for Kenrich, but yeah. AJ Mitchell out of the blue coming in here making plays in that first half. I'm like, who is this guy? And it goes to show the Thunder's depth is a strength. It's similar enough to the Knicks of last year when their depth was absolutely a strength. Now we know their depth is not a strength, but there's also a point with the push and pull of Tibbs where you feel like, could Campaign have gotten a few more minutes there? Could Precious have played a little bit more? Landry Shamet, he moves decently on defense. Can we give him a chance to get the shot going? Those guys, I think, combined for less than 30 minutes, and that is just not sustainable when your entire starting lineup, which is a massive strength and feels amazing when that 5 is running the game. But then I saw that Hart, Cat, and OG's legs looked a little gassed there at the end of the day. In that fourth quarter. Cody, did you feel that difference, the depth concern?
Yeah, I mean, Oklahoma City played, 5 guys off the bench, 3 of them over 10 minutes. Wiggins got 25 of them. Joe got 15. And you look over at the Knicks, and they've got every starter having played 40-plus minutes. And, McBride tonight, right? And, obviously we know about Mitch Robinson. But at some point, I think the same thing, like to get 5 points total from your bench, even though the starting lineup was fantastic, is incredible. Could they have gotten tired towards the end? It's always that question and discussion with Tibbs where it's like, you got to love him as a coach. I thought they game planned so well tonight early on, attacking SGA in the post, kind of building a Giannis-like wall to stop SGA and make life difficult on him, which, again, a thing I think you really have to do to at least bother him, and they absolutely bothered him. Tibbs has been so good with those decisions, and come playoff time, this is kind of what it's going to look like, which I have a different kind of concern, if you will, about Oklahoma City on the other side of that. But in a regular season game, this is who Tibbs is. But yeah, you're always going to wonder, is every starter playing 40 minutes when it's not like those guys are super duper young either.
No.
It starts to wear on you as the season goes, but it's a question as old as time with Tibbs, and that's just who he is.
They're not young. They're obviously not old, right? Like they're all in the mid-late 20s. They're not an old team, but they're definitely not young. And not all these guys are super healthy all the time. Like Brunson missed the previous game, and his legs kind of showed it to a little bit. 0 for 5 from 3, 9 for 23 from the field. A lot of those misses late in the game there. But Cat was injury prone the past couple of years. OG obviously has been injury prone throughout his career, and I feel like OG's legs look fried like half the time. Right? Like he'll throw down like a nasty dunk, and I'm still kind of like, as I watch him kind of land or
scary tonight seeing him land.
Well, landing that one, obviously, like straight on his side was a little bit crazy, but I'm just saying regular game against the freaking Wizards, and OG's going up for a rebound or a fast break. Maybe it's PTSD from the fast break injury he dealt with in the playoffs, but I'm like seeing his legs, and I'm seeing Josh Hart, I'm seeing Cat. Like, yeah, they're still flying for rebounds. Yeah, they're still technically putting in effort, but there seemed to be a little juice missing in that fourth quarter when an Aaron Wiggins, a Jalen Williams, and a SGA were as fresh as can be. And Lou Dort was playing with the same energy that he had earlier in the game.
Yeah, and Oklahoma City's coming off a back-to-back. I mean, albeit it's a home and home, and last night they were able to win comfortably enough to the point where I don't think any starter played more than 30 minutes, so they're relatively fresh. But that is the style they play. They're able to bring 5 guys off the bench no matter the night, no matter who's been out. Again, Caruso out, Holmgren out, and they're still playing 10-man rotation. So it's a completely opposite than the Knicks, where I'm like, the Knicks, for one thing, know this is our closing 5. I mean, there's no question about who their closing 5 is so long as everyone's healthy. And that's fantastic. And when it comes to the Thunder down the stretch, down the season, in the playoffs, my question is, how do you trim this 10, 11, 12-man potentially rotation into your solid core 8? And that's a ultimate test for Dagnall. It's a good problem to have, like they all say, but it is something that when I'm looking at the Thunder and I look at these type of games against a really good team, that's what I'm looking at, is who's closing out the game. And tonight it was Aaron Wiggins joining that group.
Yeah, and the Knicks side of it too is a difficult one. It's not shocking to see it when you're playing a team like the Thunder, right? When you're putting out your best effort, you're trying to punch up, right? Because even if the Knicks are considered a true contender, I think they're number 4 or 5 in title odds right now. That means there's 3 or 4 teams that are above you. The Thunder are clearly one of them, right? So this is a big game for them. This is a try to punch up type of game. That makes sense. But when you're playing the Wizards, when you're playing a beat up Orlando team, when you're playing Utah, like there's no reason for Josh Hart and OG Anunoby to be logging 42 minutes. Like there's just no reason for it. And it comes down to trust with Tom Thibodeau. And when it comes to trust, I think one of the misses in this game that we haven't mentioned yet is Miles McBride. Miles McBride is out right now. Obviously, he's not even on the level of a Chet Holmgren. He's not on the level of any of the starters, but he is a guy that Tom Thibodeau absolutely trusts. He knows he's going to play defense the right way, the Tibbs way, and he could be additive on offense. Like he could play his role and shoot open shots. He's a very good catch and shooter, and he can be at least a decent creator from time to time. Not having him to me feels like that's Tibbs' bench safety blanket, right? Like Precious is getting there. He's been playing better. Shamit's still new to the squad. Obviously, he's not trusted yet. And in physical matchups, he doesn't seem to ride campaign, right? The campaign energy that he brings off the bench and the shot making that he can bring off the bench and the fast break stuff, for some reason in matchups like this, well, not for some reason, for a reason being defense, he's not putting campaign in these matchups. So I think missing McBride, it adds a massive element because that also takes away some of the effort from Hart and Mikal Bridges when guarding SGA because Miles McBride is a pretty solid matchup there.
No, he's a big miss for them. And I think that's, again, one of those differences when you see a team with a lot of depth versus a team that doesn't have quite as much depth. When you're missing a guy, you feel it a lot more. And so they feel the Miles McBride minutes not being there. But none of this is to say there should be any world of panic for the Knicks or that this is a bad loss or they can't beat a team like this Thunder team because they're going to have another opportunity to do so, I believe, in a week. And they certainly brought everything that I think they pushed OKC to a limit. And again, the reason I was so encouraged was how they responded, not just being SGA, because at this point I come to expect that from SGA, even some of those extraordinary finishes and plays. But to see it from Jalen Williams in this spot and Aaron Wiggins step up, those are the things that this game meant and I took away from it. And then on the Knicks side of things, again, I'm just like, dude, look how quickly this has come together offensively. And there's still, I think, maybe a buyout move, which Bill Simmons I know has talked about a lot, or a potential ad. And of course, we're still waiting on Mitch Robinson. But I'm encouraged by the Knicks. I think they're absolutely one of those three best teams in the East. I think it's them, the Cavs, who, again, I think have to be taken seriously, and obviously Boston. But I do think they're just above Milwaukee, and I think there's four teams, and Pete, as I'm maybe shifting here my thought, but I was thinking about this during the game of who the Knicks are comparatively in the East and OKC in the West, and I'm like, I think that the four teams in the East are at least as good as the four teams right now in the West. I mean, they are seriously good teams, those four that I just mentioned. I think Milwaukee maybe has a little bit more to prove right now, but those are some serious teams out East. And I think that competition to win the Eastern Conference is at least neck and neck with all the conversation that you get hearing about the Western Conference's talent.
I definitely agree. I think it was so easy early in the year to be like, oh my gosh, the West is so much better. And they are deeper still, right? If you're looking at the Pistons, Bulls, Nets range of teams, I'm taking the Sixers out of it. And then you look at the same teams in that 8 to 11 spot. You're looking at right now Minnesota, Golden State, San Antonio, Phoenix, and Sacramento.
Agreed.
So, yeah, those teams technically, like Phoenix and Sacramento, they're under 500. They're not playing good ball, but there is a pedigree with those squads that's different than the Eastern Conference teams. But if you're going on a straight up confidence meter right now, I think you are taking the top four Eastern Conference teams over the top four Western Conference teams. Like you're talking Cleveland and Boston, probably 1 and 3 or 2 and 3. If you want to put OKC at 1 right now, go ahead. That's two of the top three. I think that's kind of a no-brainer. Then you got the Thunder in that top three, right? Now we're talking Knicks, Bucks, Memphis, Houston, Denver, and the Lakers. I think I would take the Knicks and the Bucks almost over every one of those teams, right? Like the Memphis Grizzlies still need to kind of continue to prove out the continuity with getting Ja back, and he's still missing some time, and they're figuring out some stuff despite playing well. The Rockets are still young and largely unproven. The Nuggets are still not very deep. So I do agree. I think the East is stronger than we thought, especially at the top, early on in the year. So that's a huge part of it. But let's go back to the Knicks really quick. Again, Cody O'Connor and Pete Kennedy right here on Subway Sports Talk, live on Twitter. Juan Soto is a New York Met, but if you're listening, obviously we're talking Knicks and Thunder here. To the Mitchell Robinson side of things, obviously it's not something that Knicks fans should be pointing at like, well, we don't even have Mitchell Robinson, right? Because haven't had him yet this year. But this thought of him coming back is adding an element to the team that they currently don't have. Even what Precious Achiuwa added since his return, which has been helpful and valuable, is not what Mitchell Robinson can add. Do you think, though, in a game like this against a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder, Mitchell Robinson's style is something that is impactful?
That's interesting to bring into this specific because I do think he comes into play for sure. But I thought like late down in that game, I'm like thinking about how Oklahoma City's making it so difficult on the Knicks to score, yet having such a hard time cleaning up the glass, which was such a frustration last year. You even mentioned it in your keys to look at before the game, how Hartenstein has added that element, but he's currently just one guy. And for some reason, it's like the others just positionally don't seem to be excellent rebounders. So Mitchell Robinson either would have been like this overkill, like they are completely dominating the glass to a point where they're almost scoring every possession because it's 2, 3, 4 chances, or it would have just been like redundant in a sense. And you'd have been like, well, we're already kind of getting that from OG and Cat and Josh. Do we need Mitch Robinson where he's also clogging up the paint a little bit and maybe not giving Mikal Bridges those same looks that he was getting, or Brunson the same space to work with? So he's going to be an element that they'll need, and I think he'll. We've talked about how that's going to come in different matchups, but maybe if nothing else, again, another guy that you trust a little bit, hopefully, and decreases the minutes of some of those guys that are playing 40 plus and keeps them just a little bit more fresh, and maybe that is something that's a difference down the stretch.
Comes down to trust, 100%. Another guy who Tibbs says, I know what I'm getting from this dude when he's out on the court. Like intense pressure on the opposing offense around the rim, and then the rebounding. Like Karl-Anthony Towns rebounding has been out of control. I mean, he's put up some gaudy rebounding stats in his career over in Minnesota, but at this point, it's nuts. I mean, another 20 rebound game. Obviously, he never got his offense fully going, only getting 13 shot attempts up, but the 22 rebounds is silly. Him and Josh Hart being top 10 rebounders in the league right now is not something that we fully expected. I mean, Towns' counting stats will be there, but I'm seeing him get big rebounds and boxing out and going above and beyond the opposing team to grab these boards. That's big. But again, at 42 minutes again tonight, is it sustainable for him to be the main rebounder alongside Josh Hart? And that's where Mitchell Robinson adds just a massive element. And it doesn't have to be late in the fourth quarter. We just talked about your Thunder, and I'm glad that we're kind of putting these two teams next to each other right now, because I do think the Thunder and the Cavs are kind of the gold standard. Thunder a little bit differently because of the depth. Look at what Kenrich Williams felt like he did in 9 minutes. I mean, his plus minus doesn't show it, but when you watched him for 9 minutes, activity, crashing boards, making passes, cutting to the lane. Isaiah Joe, only 15 minutes. AJ Mitchell, 13 minutes. But you felt the impact. You felt them out there. And obviously, Dagnall doesn't need to put them in closing time when the rest of the team is cooking. But adding that element throughout the game and allowing SGA to kind of sit down in the second quarter and be one of the freshest players on the court late in the fourth, it has to add up at some point where the Knicks are not adding in that way.
Yeah, it's almost ironic because of they're complete polar opposites in this sense, and that's why I I am like confident in what the Knicks are going to do in the playoffs, and almost curious of what the Thunder are going to do in the playoffs, because regular season, this stuff makes them such a nightly juggernaut. That's truly, again, I'll keep using that word. I've said it since the beginning of the year. It's why I took over 56.5 wins. They're looking at like a 16-5 win pace, like maybe higher. So their regular season is, hey, we can keep these guys fresh. It's sustainable. It makes sense. But that's why I've said since the beginning, that's not exactly what their progression is win the Western Conference. Like anything short of that is going to be a failure. If you don't even make the conference finals, it'll be a massive failure. Like that's where they're at. Whereas I think the Knicks, again, I know that's what they're built to be. And honestly, that's what I think that their expectation is too. Actually, I don't want to even say that that's different. It's not a different expectation, but Oklahoma City is going to hit, it seems like, less road bumps in the regular season. Like they're kind of just on a cruise control, except like the foot's down to 90 at all times. And,
yes.
and for, and
SGA is probably the best player in the league.
Well, I could have that conversation. I'd love to, but
MVP.
Like, you think of a Boston cruise control, it's a lot different. Like they're just kind of coasting, where it's like Oklahoma City's just, they're on a smooth terrain right now. And a newer team like the Knicks will still have some bumps. And because of the depth, they'll still have those nights you question these things. But again, I still think the overall takeaway from the Knicks game is this team is really, really good and ready to contend. And I thought that's what this game showed, was these two teams are not nearly too far apart, and they're two of the top 5 to 6 teams in the NBA.
This game was rare for Knicks fans from my perspective because of what you just said. They're not acting like a woe is me loss. It's not a sky falling loss. I don't think Knicks fans in their heart of hearts thought they would win this game. They thought there was a good chance to win this game and that competing with them at a high level was the measuring stick. A, because it's in Oklahoma City. That's for starters. But then B, because they've been playing so damn well and clicking on many different cylinders that it needed to be an expectation to compete with them at a high level, right? If you get blown out by OKC, you can go, it was in OKC. We'll see him in the Garden next week and we'll see how it goes. Now it's like, okay, we went 44 minutes, I guess, 44 minutes strong with Oklahoma City. We see them in our place next week. Let's see how that goes because we feel pretty good about it. So that's the big difference. And I think Knicks fans did a good job handling and setting expectations on this game, whereas other losses, when they lose stupid games, it's, I told you this team was bad. I told you the Bridges trade didn't make any sense. And thank God that narrative is basically dying. Yeah, because he's been playing off the charts. I thought he could have done even more tonight, honestly. Like I think he tried to be a little bit more assertive at some point, but there ends up being moments in time where it's just not natural for him to get all those touches, right? With Brunson running the show, with Cat needing touches, Josh Hart doing Josh Hart stuff. Mikhail's not getting 30 shots in a game. Like, it's very rare that something like that happens when they're all playing, but he obviously has moved to a different echelon. On the overall expectations for the New York Knicks, I don't think it's final or bust for them because of the path that they might be on. I do think for your Oklahoma City Thunder, the finals or bust thing makes a lot of sense because last year was like, all right, this is our first real time as a top dog in the playoffs. We got to win a series and then compete our ass off. And that's exactly what they did.
Yep.
They could have won that series against Dallas and they could have been in the finals. They lost a tough one and a long one. So it wasn't as big of a heartbreaker in that way. But now it's like, all right, conference finals ain't enough. We're the best team in the West, and we have to make the finals. That's that. For the Knicks, with this path that they might be on, seeing Boston in round 2, maybe if the standings shake out differently, seeing Boston in the conference finals. Who knows how Cleveland's going to show up in the playoffs? They look obviously amazing right now. I can see a world where, as a Knicks fan, I'm saying, I don't think finals is the expectation. It is the realistic hope, but not the expectation. Am I selling the Knicks short by saying that, Cody?
Well, I think we'll agree that there's certainly conference finals, right? Like if they do match up with the Cavs or the Celtics, whoever it may be, and it's in the second round, meaning they fell the same spot short as they did last year, and with the way that they're built and the fact that they're essentially all in on this group and love that they are, I think that's the reason I'm saying that they are maybe not expected. Odds won't show that they're expected, but they're also, they're a team that's probably going to be together for hopefully 3 to 4 years, if not more. But they're in their window right now too. So that's where it's yes, they're not exactly on the Celtics odds level, but if they see the Celtics round 2, they got to beat the Celtics in round 2. I mean, unfortunately, that's just kind of, I think, what it is. And that is a testament to what they've built. That's
right.
With great power comes great responsibility. That's kind of what it is.
Yeah, it's really where they've earned the right to be in that conversation. So you now earned the bearing of expectation.
Yep.
Right. So just because you're in the conversation doesn't mean you can say, oh, well, we made it to the Celtics round and okay, if we lose in 6, it's okay. Right. Like, no, I'm not going to be satisfied with a Celtics series loss, obviously in any way, but I will be proud if they go 7 grueling matches with the Boston Celtics, even if it's round 2. I think that's kind of the weird difference in what I'm trying to get through. And I think it makes sense. Some people will call it loser mentality. It's not what I would call it because this team is locked in for a couple years now, right? With Bridges being paid and Cat getting paid, Brunson obviously being here, OG getting the extension, like Josh Hart he'll get paid more at some point, but not next year. Like, this team is here. So the steps that they're taking this year are obviously huge, but it's not like if they lose to the Celtics in 7 in the conference finals that we should sit here and say this team's a failure and they need to blow it up, right? I think that's a fair thing to say.
No, context matters. It all matters how it looks, how it goes. It's why I still just deemed the Mets last year a success, and I know that this year is a different story as far as expectations. The Knicks have earned that probably even more than the Mets have at this point. So that's what it is. I think that's where they're at, but of course context will matter. It's not like I'd be sitting here being like, man, that hard fought series, but like that was such an embarrassing finish for the Knicks,
Right.
even though like clearly the basketball doesn't show that,
Right. It's kind of like this game, right? They lost by 10, but that was not a true 10-point loss, right? If they were down between 7 and 12 for the entire second half, yeah, right, they kind of got beat bad. But they were up, they were tight late, and then the Thunder ran away, and freaking Aaron Wiggins could not miss, which was tough to watch. And like, I know Aaron Wiggins is a player, bro. I know he's not bad. But when he goes up against your favorite team, and I don't just have him randomly in a parlay on like a Tuesday night against the freaking Kings for him to hit 2 threes for some reason, like, I'm like, come on, Aaron Wiggins? Are we for real right now? And he could not miss and was making hella good plays in the fourth quarter.
No, that was an encouraging sign from him, because I was so happy when they extended him. I'm an Aaron Wiggins guy for a while now.
You're part of the reason why he ends up in my parlay sometimes.
He does a lot of really good basketball things, and he can shoot, but like hitting 3 straight in the fourth quarter, a couple of those acrobatic finishes, I've seen it all. I've seen him do it. It's not like that came out of complete nowhere, but I completely understand when you're like, all right, we got to stop SGA, and we've done a good job, and we've got to stop Jalen Williams, and he's starting to cook. And then when that third and fourth guy come and start hitting shots against you, you're like, it's like, what are we supposed to do now? It's kind of like how you guys have talked about campaign in previous years,
I was just
right?
about to say that.
Like when he's doing it, and again, the Knicks have the same type of roster construction where it's like, damn, Mikal Bridges is killing us, and you know what Brunson could do, and Cat and all that, but when it's campaign for a quick 6, you're like, God, damn it. What do we do?
If Jalen Williams hit 3 threes in 2 minutes, I'd be like, God damn, but he's a great freaking player. If like you said, Bridges or even OG hit 3 threes in 2 minutes, like, God damn, but they've been playing good ball. But if campaign comes out here and hits 3 in 3 minutes, you're like, well, I know he could do that, but it sucks.
But now,
to watch.
does he have to do it now? Yeah, exactly.
It absolutely blows to watch it happen to your team. But the 3-point shot, though, Cody, also comes into play. I've been trying to find the halftime stats, and if you know where I can find this, like, quickly, you could possibly help me out here. But the Knicks ended up 9 for 32 on threes, and I'm almost positive they had 7 made threes at halftime. I can't find the stat anywhere, but I'm pretty sure they had 7 made threes at halftime, which basically is telling me they got completely cold in that second half from the 3-point line. And that is another part that was kind of the difference in this game, right? Like, there was a few Brunson looks that could have dropped. There were a few Mikal looks that could have dropped. And Shamet, who only played, 8 minutes or so, he didn't hit a 3 either. And like, he had a decent look or two as well. So the 3-point shot, at the end of the day, some people will complain about it. It is what it is. You got to hit some of them. And at halftime, the Thunder, I think, were 5 made threes, and they ended with 14. And frankly,
Timely.
That is partially the difference too, outside of some sloppy turnovers, and I thought some tiredness on the Knicks side.
Yeah, I'm not able to find that. I'm like a Bleacher Report guy typically, so the splits are not exactly in my bag, if you'll say. But yeah, it was more timely than anything. Like, the Knicks had out their avalanche of shots and their flurry in the second quarter, and Oklahoma City was able to get multiple shots to drop later in the fourth and go on that run that just ended the game. But it's one of those games where I think if it goes 10 more minutes, like, the Knicks would have been right back in. That's how it felt. It was just back and forth. It was really good basketball, and OKC was fortunate enough to be on the last run tonight.
And that is where I'll disagree. If the game went 10 more minutes, I think the Thunder would keep running away.
You think so? I Sometimes when they get going like that, they can.
I think the Knicks were running out of gas, and that was part of it as well. Also, shout out to Toasty F-Ball. Toasty Football, I guess that stands for. He said on
Hopefully.
the comments on Twitter that the Thunder saved his leg. So at least he's a winner. I will say I also won a same game parlay in
Nice.
this game here.
I lost them all, but it was the most fun I've had losing in a while.
Yeah, that's a fine loss for you when your team wins a nice big game there, and a nice win for me when my team loses a big game. I had the Josh Hart point, rebound, assist, you know, slightly alt line.
Like a
Cat
25 plus,
20
26 plus.
25. Cat, same concept. Brunson 6 assists. He had a halftime, and then I had SGA at 25 points, which he obviously surpassed as well. And I was texting in another chat with our buddy Alec, and he has cable television, which I hate being in a group chat with people with cable.
Way
And
ahead.
yeah, like, I don't even know, a minute 10 ahead. I'm like, come on. So he texts just the word game into the group chat, and I'm like, dude, come on. There's 3:12 left in the game. Like, relax. It's like a 5-point game. He's like, I'm ahead of you. You're out. I'm like, dude, I'm putting my phone down. I'm not reacting with you right now in this chat. And I put my phone down. As soon as I put my phone down, SGA hits that like giant floater that went like 40 feet in the air. Didn't even touch the net. And I was like, all right,
Oof.
I guess it was game then.
I think it was the
Blouses.
Wiggins three. I still think more.
It was, yes.
Was what ended it. But that
Yeah.
was, I mean, that was, oh God. At that time with the left offhand, because that's how tough the Knicks made. He had to do, I think, that not exactly that move, but high off the glass. Maybe at least twice, maybe 3 times he was able to finish it. But the Knicks really made that difficult on him. They altered that shot for him, but he is just such a problem solver offensively. He seems to have all the answers. He does it so consistently, seemingly effortlessly. Just I was on the train last year and I thought he still could have been the MVP. Joker is somehow like I think even better again this year, and it's like I still like as I watch SGA nightly. Obviously, I'm like it's unbelievable to me that somebody's playing better than him. I know Joker is better than him, but truly playing better than him. And I think there's still that argument, but he is just such a nightly fun watch. He does something again almost every night where I'm like, I don't know how you can do that.
And now it's a good segue because I want to talk about Isaiah Hartenstein, but we'll start with what Hartenstein said coming into this game about playing with Brunson versus playing with SGA. Did you catch that quote?
I think he said it like a week or two ago, right? Is it another?
Yeah, it was like a
recent
week
one?
ago. Yeah, no, I think it was about a week ago. He said basically how playing with Brunson, he learned a lot about, being that guy at the elbow, helping orchestrate the offense and running the pick and roll. And he's like, with SGA, I learned how I could kind of hang out on the side and watch him cook because he does things that are out of control. And you could read that in a negative manner, but it wasn't in a negative manner.
Mm-mm.
Like Hartenstein's not talking about his guy now in a negative light. He is talking about him in the most positive light, saying, I'm his teammate. I'm out there with him and I'm watching him being like, God damn. It's basically the vibe that I got from that quote. And it shows out every single time you watch SGA.
It's special. Like, again, I watch a lot of Knicks supporter for anyone who does, anyone listening who doesn't
Except
know
for
me.
tonight, of course. Yeah.
The only time I don't root for them to win is against the Thunder. And you watch a guy like Brunson every night and you're like, dude, what an amazing talent. Like what a skill he is. Like he has a lot of that same like start, stop, herky, just kind of find his way open, a lot of pump fakes. He got Cason Wallace up tonight where I was like, damn, Brunson, like I'd never see Cason Wallace go for that. And he got him more than once. And then, but SGA is truly at a different level than even a Jalen Brunson. He's at a different level than almost everybody in the NBA. And that level is just being able to watch that consistently is incredible. And you mentioned Hartenstein, who I haven't talked about enough tonight because he is the truth difference maker in their team. Like almost like how Draymond used to be talked about at the Warriors. He's not the best, not the most talented, not going to score the most, but without him, they're not them. Without Isaiah Hartenstein, Oklahoma City is not the team that I think is the best in the West and the true contender in the West team to beat. I think he's completely changed who they are as far as a rebounding team, and when he's in the game, they have at least a shot. Like there were times last year where it's like they didn't even have a shot to get a rebound. So he's changed that, his passing ability, how he still is able to open up the floor, but he is truthfully the biggest difference maker in last year to this year to me.
Yeah,
And you guys know that more than anyone.
100%. I mean, as sad as I was to see him leave the New York Knicks, I think my first text was to you in that group, in our group chat, being like, "You are gonna love this dude. Like, you are going to appreciate him so much because of the talent around him. He's a guy who's a connector. He's a glue guy. He makes people around him better, and it's hard to say that about centers all the time. Like centers will make people around them better on defense. You know, obviously they can help finish lobs for point guards and make them look better that way. They can set good screens, but not a lot of centers can make people better the way that Hartenstein does. Like obviously, if you go to the Jokic's of the world or a Sabonis, where like a triple double is not shocking because they just have the ball a lot. Like Hartenstein's not them, but he is the role player is too much of a downgrade to what he is. But he is like the regular starter version of those types of players, where he is such a connector. The slip passes that you'll see him make when people are cutting to the basket, it's off the charts, and it really makes you appreciate him, especially when you watch him every night. One of my keys to the game was how will the Knicks rebound against a team like Oklahoma City, where rebounding is still kind of one of the weaknesses.
Yep,
Obviously,
it is
so much better with Hartenstein grabbing 17 like he did. I'm sorry, 14 like he did in this game. But you look up and down the rest of that lineup, the next leading rebounder was Aaron Wiggins with 5, right? Like Lou Dort is doing a lot of stuff. He's not a big rebounder. Like Jalen Williams will have games, but it's not like he wants to be down there rebounding that much. That element is enormous for him. And the Thunder ended up out rebounding. They ended up one down, 41 rebounds to the Knicks 42, but they did out rebound the Knicks on the defensive side of the ball. And that's big because those second chances for the Knicks could have been a huge difference maker in this game. So the two big difference makers to me in this game were the Knicks not hitting threes, getting a little gas late in the game. And then second was Isaiah Hartenstein with 7 assists, only scored 4 points, had one dagger type floater late in the game there. But the 14 rebounds, the 7 assists is the difference, right? If he's not grabbing those boards, we could be looking at, 3 more chances for the Knicks. And that could change the whole complexion of the game there.
In the minutes he's not in, you see it right away. Like he plays about 30 to 32 minutes a night typically. And when he's not in, even now they have Jalen Williams back, the other Jalen Williams, who's 6'10". It is almost bizarre with how many great things so many of these guys do that they just don't seem to position themselves well enough for rebounds. But he again is just changed that element. He was such a huge get. If you think it was an overpay, you see exactly why they had to, get anything they could or give anything they could to get him. And it's worked out so far.
And they're lucky enough to have cheap depth otherwise, right? Like Cason Wallace is still on a rookie deal, if I'm not mistaken. Like Isaiah Joe's not expensive. Aaron Wiggins not expensive. Lou Dort got a little bit more expensive, but he's not too expensive. Like the big money is kind of going to SGA.
Jalen Williams
and
is
Jalen
also
Williams
on a rookie deal. No, I don't think he's
he didn't sign an extension yet.
I don't believe him or Chet have signed any extensions yet.
Chet
this
hasn't.
Is their third year each. Or I'm sorry, this is Jalen Williams' third year. Yeah.
Well, Chet's third year technically, but second year playing.
Yeah.
Right. And then Chet not being here with Hartenstein. How many games did they overlap? Only like 2 or 3, right?
No, I don't think they've played a game together. Maybe two.
For some reason, I remember them playing like for a hot second together, but I could totally be wrong there.
They might have played 2, but I don't think they've played together at all. I'm almost positive because I feel like I'd remember it.
Yeah, I mean, and that must be for you as Thunder fan is something that you cannot wait to see.
I'm so curious to see it. Like I just can't. I really can't wait. You're right, because I know it'll work because of their styles. But what I've been, again, a little concerned and what I was so impressed and encouraged by tonight was like the non-SGA minutes and when he's not scoring, like not really when he's not scoring because he keeps scoring, but who else is it going to always be? And Jalen Williams played fantastic tonight. He feels like he needs to be that guy, but I think it's more of a some nights it's Jalen Williams, some nights it's Chet. I don't think Jalen Williams is quite the nightly 20 guy that you need. And so I'm excited to see how Chet kind of continues to add to that and add some more offense and hopefully just come back. I don't want to say hitting the ground running because hitting the ground is how he injured himself, but hopefully he just comes back right in the flow of things.
And yeah, they did not play together. Holmgren went out on 11-10, and Hartenstein did not make his debut till the 20th of November.
They had like a 5-game
exactly
center stretch. Yeah.
Where their tallest player was 6'6". Like,
yeah, it was nuts to watch.
The other Jalen Williams was also out, I believe.
Yep. Yeah,
so,
he only just came back.
The good Jalen Williams was playing center and the tallest man on the team.
Yeah, him and like Kenrich Williams, kind of like those were the two biggest guys.
Kenny Hustle, brother. He's basically a point forward at this point.
I've often thought of him as a really like the Knicks could really use this guy where he's almost
Tibbs would love him.
Like he's not repetitive. He's a great player, but he almost is for the Thunder.
Slightly repetitive of heart, if anything. But you could use two Josh.
No. I'm saying for OKC. I think Williams is like a guy that he'd trust pretty quickly. Yeah, he is. He's obviously downgraded Josh Hart, but he does a lot of good things, and I think he would just be like another damn, this is another basketball player, another NBA player that we can use off the bench and give him 12 minutes and feel comfortable with it.
If you called an NBA player like 2 years ago or 3 years ago a poor man's Josh Hart, then what a smack in the face that would be. What, a guy who can do a little bit of everything but a lot of nothing and has been traded 3 times. Now, if you say a poor man's Josh Hart, like, damn, I would love to have that guy.
It's like the best trade in Knicks history. I always see that trade referenced on Twitter. It's like, thank God and stuff like that. Yeah. Always see that one.
So funny when he got the tech today for yelling, wake up to the ref. I don't know. Were you watching on MSG or NBA TV?
MSG. I was... My most excited was not just watching the Thunder play the Knicks, but watching the Thunder with Mike Breen on the broadcast. That was like beautiful.
Always a win. So when Hart got the technical, he walks over to the scorer's table, goes to Mike Breen. He gave me a tech for yelling, wake up at him.
Yeah.
I started cracking up.
Tibbs was yelling at him a little bit too, right?
Yeah.
That was good.
Can't contain Josh Hart though. That's just who he is.
Hey, that's who he's got to be.
Yeah. I love it. I think in summation, let's put a pin in this one. We're going to end in a few minutes here. Shout out to the 200 plus who jumped into the live stream here on Twitter. Much appreciate to y'all. If you don't follow us on socials, we're at Subway Sports Talk. So if you clicked on the live and you're tapping, you're listening right now, give us a follow at Subway Sports Talk. Pete Kennedy right here, Cody O'Connor right there, the big COC, as we've been calling you as well. You can take that acronym however you want to. And let's put a pin on the Knicks conversation, though, because it was a loss that didn't hurt as bad as it could because of how well they played for 3 3/4 quarters. 3 3/4
3 in the first about 3 minutes of the fourth, yeah, and then OKC went on that run.
So, any big takeaways for the Knicks side of things? I think the Thunder side we covered enough. The Thunder are a juggernaut in the regular season, and there's really no extraordinary judgment to have on them until Chet's back and then the playoffs hit. But they're going to keep cooking. On the Knicks side, any massive takeaway for you for the positive or negative that you want to leave the listening audience with?
I think it's a positive. I think it's very clear how many legitimate ways they have to beat you, especially offensively. I think the defense is far better than it looked early on in the year, and they have – remember the type of guys that they have in their everyday lineup with OG, Mikal Bridges, and Josh Hart playing, the minutes that they do. That's a legitimate 3 top defenders, maybe 3 all defensive team type guys. But the way it came together offensively so quickly, and again, the ways that they can beat you in a loss tonight, every single guy in the starting lineups, 17 points or higher, 3 guys are 20 points or higher. The shot wasn't falling late, but it's no reason to be panicked. I think it's almost the opposite of like hey, this is a tough game in January. You don't win the regular season in January. You don't win the cup in January. You don't win anything in January. You see where your team is. I think you saw that you can compete with one of the best teams in the NBA. And so I'd be looking forward to the matchup again on Friday and just say, hey, we're not going to win every game. 9 straight was awesome. Let's go win in Chicago tomorrow and keep this thing rolling.
Back-to-back Friday night basketball games between the New York Knicks and the Oklahoma City Thunder. I mean, if you don't like that, you don't like NBA basketball, Cody. I think some of the texts and tweets that I saw really appreciated this game on this Friday night. And I love that because, if you're a Knicks fan, but you're kind of one of these NBA haters out there who's like, oh, the ratings are down because the product sucks and whatever, but you kind of tap into the Knicks, like you're turning on the Knicks games in December and you're enjoying it because the Knicks are playing great ball and winning. But outside of the Christmas game against the Spurs, I mean, listen, they kind of beat a lot of nobodies. And they beat Minnesota really well too. They crushed Minnesota in mid-December, but broken down Orlando twice, Washington just sucks, but Washington twice, Toronto, New Orleans with nobody on their team. It was a little bit ugly. The schedule gets a little bit more interesting here in January. In the next couple weeks for the Knicks, we got the Bulls, Magic, and Raptors. That's not the most exciting, but the Bulls are always a good game with the New York Knicks. Then you get Oklahoma City again on Friday, Milwaukee on Sunday, another great measuring stick, even though the Knicks in the afternoon always scare me a little bit for some reason. Then Detroit, we were all sorts of banged up. Then you get Philly at Philly mid-January, followed by Minnesota and Atlanta. So these next 3 weeks for the Knicks are huge, and here's why. Right now, the New York Knicks against teams below 500 are 16-4. They are taking care of business against teams they're supposed to beat. That's a great number. It's not quite the 12-0 Oklahoma City Thunder against teams below 500 or the 17-0 Cavs against teams below 500, but 16-4 against those teams, very, very good. But they're 8-7 against teams above 500. This Friday night was a nice moral victory in the sense that you can see this team competing with the likes of the Oklahoma City Thunder. But at some point soon in January, they are going to have to show up and beat a Thunder, a Bucks, a Sixers, even though they're below 500, and the Timberwolves and Atlanta for a little revenge from the NBA Cup. This is when the Knicks are taking this great December. They have to build off of it and win games against teams that they maybe aren't favored by 9.5 against, that they are underdogs against. And next week's game against the Thunder is another huge one. I'm not panicking. I'm not upset about this loss. There's so many positives to actually draw from it. But the biggest thing is how can Tibbs find more people that he trusts to take a little bit of bearings off of these guys playing 42 minutes apiece basically in this game. And then can they get healthy with Miles McBride and Mitchell Robinson? Other than that, the offense still looks great. The ball movement's fantastic. They got to find a way to close out good teams, and they're just fine. They're going to keep rolling. They're going to sit in the top 3 of the Eastern Conference with pretty great confidence, in my opinion. And it all comes down to how do you measure against the Thunder, the Grizzlies, the Rockets, the Cavs, and the Celtics. That's it. That's
Milwaukee?
what it is. And Milwaukee, sorry. And the Milwaukee Bucks, who they play in just a week and a half. So great stuff. Cody O'Connor, thank you as always for tapping in. I'm glad that you sent the text that you're ready to fire the mic up. I wonder why you were so excited to fire the mic up here on this Friday night, Cody.
I think I would have done it anyway. But maybe if it went really bad, maybe not. But no, it was just a fun game, and I've been excited to talk some hoops. Not just ratings, but some real hoops. And this was one of the funner games that I've watched this season. So it was a good time to fire him up. Yeah, always a blast.
And Cody O'Connor, also first of the group to hit 30 wins in our NFL picks competition. Congratulations to you. As I sit at 21 wins, like a big weenie loser bitch. So
wow, it just kept progressively getting like slowly worse. I was like, yeah, all right, loser, yeah, weenie. I was like, oh my god, Pete, you're fine.
I'm freaking 8 games under 500, man.
It's just not like you. That's very unlike you.
Me and Pat have been doing picks for like 4 years, and Shen joined a couple years ago. This is your second year. I've never been this far under 500 ever. I think almost every year I've ended at least even, if not above 500. And this hurts, bro. This hurts. I got to get in the lab for this weekend, for week 18, week 19. What the frick is it? Week 18?
We're in week 18.
But at least we got the playoffs to keep making picks, and we'll be doing that on Subway Sports Talk all the way through. So if you don't follow us already, follow us at Subway Sports Talk. We'll have our picks for week 18 out hopefully tomorrow. If not, it'll be out Sunday morning, and we'll miss all of Mark's 8 legs that he squeezes out of the 2 games on Saturday. But a great time nonetheless, as always. And we'll talk some more hoops at large with you, Cody O'Connor. in the near future. Because with football hitting the playoffs, there's obviously football to talk about, but there is like almost a little more space with less games going on to talk some hoops. So I'm pumped for hoop season and NFL playoff season as well. Cody O'Connor, thank you to the 220 plus tapping in on Twitter. Thank you. And anyone listening on their podcast app on Saturday morning, thank you as well. That's all we got. We'll talk to you soon. Cheers.